it does have nudity in it, but it doesn't have situations in it that would give that it would require a probably an NC-17 rating if it was here in the States. No, it's more like a PG-13, possibly R-rated movie, if not R, possibly PG-13. You get the idea. And and basically the thing is, it's sort of like a Superman kind of like deal. You got this young man who is you know blasted off from his world by his parents because the world's exploding or something like that. Very reminiscent of Superman. And he lands on this planet of shapeshifters. I'm not lying, folks. I'm not lying. He lands on this planet of shapeshifters, and he's adopted by a shapeshifter. So, and then he falls in love with another shapeshifter, although she doesn't change shape or anything until later on. And the Bandar book is most notably known to anime fans, not just because it has cameos by Astro Boy and a few other of this Walt Disney of Japan animation characters that he's created, but it's like I said, it's also known for the fact that it's the animation or anime debut of Black Jack, who I guess is known to a lot of anime fans. But anyway, the thing is about this story, which really makes it kind of weird and one of his more unique stories, is the fact that this character meets up with Blackjack, and Blackjack, I guess, takes him aboard his ship and then drops him off, I guess, back on his planet or back on another planet or something. And he meets up with the woman, with the girl that he's in love with, although I guess he doesn't recognize her at first. Or he does, or I don't know. Because, at the beginning, because when we first see the female, who I guess is a princess or something like that, she's very human, even though she has the ability to shapeshift. And then later on, for the majority of for the rest of the film, after I guess he meets back up with her, she just remains as this like tiny little blob with ears and a tail, and so she remains as for the rest of the film until the end when she's able to change back. So and again, I don't know exactly, I haven't changed back, and again, I don't know exactly what happens in the film, because I've just, like I said, everything I've talked about, I've read offline off all these sites, and you can look them up yourself on Anime Newsweek and Anime Vice and IMWB and Wikipedia, and you'll see that I'm not lying. But again, it just shows you that that kind of animation, you know, with that kind of content, with that kind of strong showing of certain content or not, has been going around for nearly 40 plus years, if not more so. And like I said, you can look at the Anime Drawing Revolution documentary and you'll find out. But the one thing I've noticed about Japanese animation is the way that it allows a character. Is that the one thing about the animators, the writers, and the creators, is that they always like to do things a little uniquely. They like to give the characters abilities and powers which, even back then was never commonplace in American animation, but is kind of commonplace now. I mean, you take a look at, certain. I mean, for example, there's one anime that's very popular among fans, and the series was popular and it got itself a movie, but the movie was more of a retelling of its origin, and that was Utena. Excuse me. And Utena basically was, like I said, it was kind of a, from what I saw, was an okay anime series. You know, it had some weird, unique moments. But from what people said, the movie, which I do have, was even more weirder. For example, it was even more weirder because one thing that a lot of people always point out about the Utena movie compared to the series is never once did you have Utena turning into anything. You never once had her turning into anything, and yet, towards the end of the movie, you have her going into a car wash and turning into a car. Which, if you're a long-time Utena fan, really throws a curveball at you. But still, again, this just shows you the uniqueness and the difference between Japanese animation and American animation. Now, I know some people will say, well, wait a minute, we had the human turn into a car deal before with Turbo Teen, and we even had a Transformer episode where we had a human-like character, or a human-like female / mermaid character, turn into a robot and turn into a gondola, and turn into a gondola and all that. Yeah, that's true. But you gotta remember though, you gotta remember this though, the difference between that and here is that people that saw and were fans of the Utena series and the manga and whatever, never, when they saw the movie, never would have expected, that to happen. You know, in the ones that I mentioned here in the States, which were Turbo Teen and an episode of Transformers, you would expect that. Yeah, you would probably expect that. Turbo Teen, that was the premise right off the bat. The episode from Transformers, which was called Sea Change, you had to obviously expect that some way, somehow. But still, it's so, the difference between the Japanese animation and American animation is so different in many aspects, not just because of that strong content, because of its uniqueness, and not to be mean or anything, but its weirdness. And excuse me. One other thing I've noticed about the Japanese animation compared to American animation is one thing that they like to use more so in their animated series or movies than we do, than any animated series here in the States do, is the fact that they like to turn certain characters and heroes or damsels in distress or femme fatales or whatever, they like to turn them into stone, and they like to turn them into inanimate objects. And we're not just talking about stone and inanimate objects or even animals, just for an episode. Sometimes the stone in the inanimate objects, and sometimes the occasional animal, is almost like for the rest of the season, if you will. I can tell you this by watching Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot. When they went into during the third season or second season or whatever you want to call it, during the second season or the 2.5 second season and a half of the 2.5 edition of the 2.5 part of the second season where they went into the virtual world. They had Tristan turned into a mechanical monkey almost for the rest of for the rest of the time they were there. And if that's something, they had Yugi's soul trapped for most of the third season in stone, or at least in limbo or something like that, along with Pegasus and Mise and excuse me. And the difference about that, and again the difference there is, here in American animation you'd only have that maybe for an episode, maybe two, and that's it. But at least mostly for an episode, and that's it. Japanese animation would have it go, like I said, for almost the entire season, over the entire portion of that saga or that miniseries. You know, and like I said, that, you know, that's the major difference between Japanese animation in Japan and animation here. I mean, yes, there have been a few occasions where that has happened. In fact, it was that Street Fighter cartoon that was on USA Network years back, where they had Cammy, I think right off the first episode, you know, get brainwashed into joining Bison and Shadowlaw or Shadowloo for most of the first season. So, but like I said, the difference between animation, when it's the difference between when that kind of stuff's done here in the States, in animation here in the States and in Japan, is that here in the States it's not for that long. It's only for like one episode, and on occasions maybe for the for the for the rest of the saga or the miniseries, or if not the season, only on rare occasions. In Japan it's almost commonplace, you know. I mean, for example, you know, you know, and I'm not saying they don't do the one episode deal either. They do, but like I said, for example, there's, you know, one part where they infect, I think, the female Mega Girl or whatever she is in Mega Man Digital, whatever, or DT, whatever it is, one of the Mega Man cartoons that came out a few years back, and they basically infect her with a virus or something like that, and they turn her against her friends or something. I don't know. And then another could be another thing also, like say for Mega Man, I think it's the NT Warriors or something like that. You have the character of Luna, and I saw this on YouTube. You know, I guess her jealousy and wanting to be around Mega Man, or the kid that became Mega Man, was so evident, to the point that she allowed herself to be possessed or controlled, and to be, and if not tricked, into becoming the Orpheus Queen. In other words, I don't know, maybe Mega Man fans out there can explain more than I can, but still, yeah, they, you know, like us, they will on occasions do the one episode deal where the characters under the control of something else, and they become this other being, if not for like maybe the whole episode, if not maybe for 10 minutes of the episode, if not, like I said, for the full episode. But the difference between us and them is that when they do it for like a long period of time, they do it on almost commonplace, you know, for a long period of time. They do it commonplacely almost all the time. I mean, let's say for example, let's say for example, they have an anime series where a female character gets turned into a lamp, and she can't be changed back until almost the end of the season, and everybody's just using her as a lamp. Say, okay, turn on so and so right now and see what we can read. And you know, and then at times in doing you get the idea, you get what I'm saying. So but yeah, you know, to me, that kind of stuff, along with that certain content and stuff like that, is almost commonplace for Japanese animation. And like I said, with the turned into stone